네, 자 2시가 됐죠. 오늘 국제생태농업포럼 사전 전날입니다. 개막식 사전 전날에 봉하 국제생태
So welcome everyone. We will now begin Bongha International Eco Film Festival. So we will invite valuable eco-related films and screen it for our audience. So first film to show to you is Whose Seeds Are by director Haramura Masaki. So we will have the Q&A session with the director. Hello, director. Can you see us?
네, 반갑습니다. 네. 영어 좋습니다.
Natural on your shirt. It's good to see you on the screen. And we have another guest, Mr. Tanaka Hiroshi, who created the Korean subtitle. Can you hear us? Good to see you as well. So you will be the panel for this session. So yes, I saw this film on YouTube as well. It lasted for about 60 minutes. So some people might say that this film is pretty rough, but it is in very much detail. I grew up in rural villages, so I know about seeds pretty well. So farmers understand the value and importance of seeds. And so this film taught me about the importance of seeds once again. So, well, I believe that many of you have seen the film on YouTube already. So I collected some questions from our audience, and I have my personal questions as well. So let me give you my question first. So in the film, you visited a lot of farming villages and you talked to a lot of professionals, and you've also worked with the former Ministry of Agriculture of Japan. So I believe that, director, you are from a rural village, right?
生まれたのは母親の実家で、今成田空港ってあると思うんですが、空港ができる前なんですけど、あの辺りで
Well, I was born in
病院っていうんじゃないけども、助産婦さんっていうか、お産婆さんですね。
Ega, and I was not born in a hospital, but I was born to a midwife. And well, I'm not technically from a rural village. I was born in a region near Tokyo. Well, it is pretty close to a rural village. But, well, my mom is from a rural village. So the region that I was born in and I grew up in is half city, half rural village. Thank you. The reason I'm asking this is that you have a very special sense, and I could see it in your film, and I thought that you were from a rural village. So why did you get interested in seeds? Well, because I was once a farmer myself, and I have my kitchen garden, and well, I am not a professional farmer, but I do know how to grow crops. And yes, I do have some interest in seeds, because seeds are the very important source for farming. And I always has been interested in the farming industry. In the 70s, when Japan saw dramatic development in its society and economy, I think that we had some issues. Well, we had some questions like, what are we? what are the
やっぱりこ
humanity?
の、農業もいろいろあるん
Well,
ですが、
Japan
一番最初にやっぱり
is
1980
a small
年ですから、もう
country
40
in
年近く前
Asia, and
40年経ってないか。やはりこの一番その原点に近いのは何かなっていうことで、当時は今ほど
about 40
有機農
years
業が
ago, I
ポピュラ
wanted
ーではなかったん
to
ですけど、
know
有機農
more
業をやって
about
る
the
方々
origin
の取材から
of
入
the
りました。
humanity.
そしてやっぱりこの作
And
物をですね、
well, I
自
found
然っていうか
that
畑、田んぼもそう
agriculture,
なんですけど、
particularly organic
そ
farming,
こで丹
is
念に
something
育て
that I
てい
have to
く。
focus
要する
on
に、
to find the
こういうこと
origin
な
of
んですね。
humanity.
簡単に
They,
一言で言って
organic
しまえ
farmers,
ば、
pay so much
農
attention
家の人が
to their
種からそれが
crops,
作物を育てる時にですね、
and
こういう言葉をいくつかの言葉あるん
when
ですが、素晴らし
they
い言葉で、
cultivate their
やはり子
seeds,
育てのようだと言ってるんですよ。苗を育て
they
る。
act
それが
like
また
that
苗
they
な
are
んか
rearing
も
a
この苗とか
child,
言わないでこのことで
when
すね。
particularly when
それ
they are
から収
growing
穫期
seedlings.
に
So they
成長
think
し
that
た作
seedlings
物に
are
対し
their
てこの人とか擬人
offspring
化するわけ
or
です。
children.
そういった心ですね。やっぱ
So
りこの農業というのは
they
傍から見てると
see no
汗まみ
difference
れ、
between
ね、それから
seedlings
埃
and
まみれ
human.
っていう感じで見
So
事
while
に見え
some
るん
of
です
you
が、
might think that
農家の人たち
farmers
といろいろ取材を
have
して
to
いろいろ
carry
話
out
をする
all
と、
these
心の
difficult
中に、
jobs
ある人は詩
and
人のよう
always
な言葉
covered
で
in
おっしゃるんです。ある人は
dust.
哲学者ではないかと思うような
However,
感触の言葉を
when
され
I
るんですけど、
personally
非
met
常に
them,
な
I
んていう
could
か
see
精
that
神性
many
の
of
高い人た
them
ち多いんです。
are
人間
pretty
的に素晴らしいなってい
poetic
う感じが
and
してい
they
て
have
です
a
ね、
deep
そう
philosophical
いうことがず
understanding
っとあったもん
and
ですから、
they
20
have
代の
great
頃から、も
characters
ち
as
ろん農業
human
だけではないんで
beings.
すけど
So
も、
they are
やは
really
り全体的
sensitive
に農業
culturally and
を、
literally as well.
ライフワークというか主
So
軸にしてやってきたと。
I
で、
thought
やっぱりその
that
原
a
点は
farming has to
種である
do
とい
with
う
that.
感
Well,
じ
so
で、
anyways, I
素晴ら
thought
しいものだ
that
と思い
the
ます。やっぱり
origin of humanity
種
can
が
be
ね、こ
found
の
in
その
seeds. So
い
that
つ
is
からってい
why
うこと
I
は僕は地
became
質学者じゃないから
interested
わからないんですけど
in
も、
seeds.
縄文時代か
Well,
らずっと続い
seeds,
てきて、
that is so
農家の人たちがですね、
wonderful. I'm not
いい
a
ものを探して、
philosopher,
で
but
いい作物をどんどんどんどんこの進化させていって、
seeds
それが代々
do
受け継がれてい
have
くっ
and
ていう
deliver
か
a
です
lot
ね、
of values.
その代だけじゃな
It
くて、
has long been
ずっ
inherited
と
in
引き継
the
がれていく。
history of
私が言う言葉に
humanity,
は、
and
雑
many
木林
people are
の
working hard
落ち葉堆肥
to
を毎
preserve
年毎
them.
年入れて、落ち葉堆肥農法っていうのがあ
We
るんですけど、
sometimes grab
それも
things
360年間続けてきて
from
る
the
んですね。
ground in
そうい
forest
ったものが
in
で
order to
先祖があるから自
grow
分があるんです。
new
だから農
plants.
業は、
And this practice has
10年一
been
日だ、100年一
in
日だ、
place
毎
for a
年
long
毎日
time,
小学校1年生だって、そういう
as
謙虚
long
な気
as
持ちもありますし
we
ね。
lived
やっぱり
on
自
this
然と
planet.
この対峙して、
So I
種と
believe
いうか、
that
そういう
the
生き物
humanity
と
needs to
向
stand
き合いながら
humble
仕事
before
をしている
seeds,
農家の方
the
々
very
の
origin of our being
素晴らしさというも
and
のにやっぱり
the
惹かれ
nature.
て、長年農村通いをしてきたという
So
ことです。
I
알겠습니다. 그 하라무라 마사키
that I see a great value in
씨앗의
seeds.
이야기를 하면서 눈을 지그시 감는 게 여러 감흥이 같이 있는 듯합니다. 철학가이면서
Well,
시인인데 우리 저
it is
옆에
very
계신
touching that you found many farmers
히로시,
were like philosophers
우리
and
히로시
poets.
씨.
So now I have
다큐멘터리
a
한글
question
자막을
to Mr.
맡으셨다고
Hiroshi.
들었습니다. 맞지요?
I learned that you did the Korean
한국말
subtitle
할줄 아시네요.
work for this movie, right? Yeah. Oh,
어떻게
you
인연이
speak Korean.
되셔가지고 이
Great.
작업을 같이
So
하게
how
되셨습니까?
did you join the team for this subtitle work?
이 영화의 프로듀서 하신 그 야마다 마사히코 변호사님, 그
Producer
전에
of the film
그
Yamada
농林
Masashiko
수산부 장관도 하셨던 분인데 그분도
is the former
연락받고
Minister of Agriculture
한국에서
in Japan.
유기농 특히 친환경
And
학급식에 대해서 취재하고 싶다고
with
연락을
he
왔어요.
contacted me
네, 그때 하람라
that he
감독하고
wanted to
함께
do
오셔가지고
some research into Korea's school lunch and organic farming. So the former minister and I visited Jeonju and Hongsong in Korea to do the interview. So we've done a lot of interviews back then and made a lot of video footages. So this footage was used to create this movie that we are discussing, whose seeds are. And we also developed a different film
되어 있습니다.
people who
그럼
are
야마다 프로듀서와 관계로 제가
protecting the food scene.
만들게 되었습니다.
So
번역을
in
아주
total, we
적극적으로
created
하시는
two
듯한
films
흔적들이
together.
많이 나던데
So,
어찌
so I
즐거웠습니다.
see that you've
네,
put a lot of
네.
effort for the
네,
subtitles.
제가
Did you
원래는
enjoy the process?
환경단체 코디네이터나 통역을
Yes.
많이 해봤거든요.
I have been working
특히
as an environmental group coordinator and a
몇 번
translator.
가봤고요.
So
그 논습지 교류회라는 게
I
한국하고 일본에서 해마다 해왔어요.
have done a lot of
논습지에 어떤 생물이 살아 있는지 조사하는
I
그런
visited a lot of
행사거든요.
wet
그런
fields
것도
in Korea and Japan as
농업에
well to do
대해서도
some
좀
research.
알게
So I do
되었습니다.
have some understanding
알겠습니다. 이제
about
본격적으로
farming.
감독님 좀 질문을
I see. Thank
좀
you.
여쭤보도록 하겠습니다.
So
먼저
then I
미리
do have some more
보고,
questions
유튜브로
to
미리 보고
director.
질문을
So
먼저 좀
some
여쭤볼게요.
people left
영화
a comment on
제목이
YouTube. So let me share this with you.
그죠?
So the title of the
어떻게
film is
보면은
Whose Seeds Are.
씨앗이 누구의 것인지라는 생각을 한 번도 잘 안 하는데
Actually, I've
누구의
never
것인가를
thought
이
about
제목을
this issue, but when I saw this title, it just hit me hard. So why did you make the title of this movie like this?
基本的にこの映画をご覧になった通りで、やはりこの大きな外国の企業が種を囲い込むと
Well,
いう恐れがある。
basically, foreign multinational companies
やはりそれ一部の力の
are
あるですね
trying hard
グロ
to
ーバル
have
企
some
業 の
exclusive
ものでは
rights
ない
to
んです。
seed. So that was the
お金持ちという
beginning
かそう
of
いう人たちのものではなくて
my
ですね
filmmaking. I wanted
農家
to
のものだと
deliver the
広く言ってしま
message
え
that
ば
seeds
全
do
ての
not belong
人々
to
人間のです
the
ね
rich
全てのもの
or
だという
some
こと
large
を
companies.
伝えたかった
Seeds
んです。
must be shared by
でや
all
はりこの
humanity. That was the message
要
that
する
I
に
wanted to
独占する人
deliver
たちは
to the
種を
audience.
工業製品のようにいろいろ
So some
名称
people,
に何かして自分
particularly
たちの権利を
these
主張するわけですけ
trademark
ど、
holders,
その権利を僕は否定はしませんけれども
want to have the
育成してきた
ownership
努力
over
もあ
the
りますから
seeds because they
でもそ
see
れを
them as
ほとんど独
a
占しようっていうのはおかしいんじゃないか
commercial
なぜかっていうとで
product.
すねこれは当たり前なんですよ
And I do
種なんて
believe that they
種は
might
です
want to
ね
have some rights
石ころから要する
to
に
these seeds
無機物
because
から
they have put some
科学者
effort to
とか
develop
作れないわけで
good
す。
ones.
そういうなんていうか
However,
種子メーカー
well,
もですね
seeds
やっぱり
cannot
自
be
然にあるものに
created
人間がちょっと手を加えて品種改良するわけですから、ちょっとなんていうと品種改良って人たちは怒るかもしれ
Seeds
ません。
come
すごい努
from
力してるんだと思うか
organic
もしれませんけど
matters
でも
in the ground,
無生物から種が作れるんだったらいい
in
んですけ
land.
ど生き物なんですね。それはずっと
So,
生き物
well,
の
it is not a chemical
という視
product
線から見
or
ると
outcome
生
of
命
some
を
chemical
独占するというですね
calculations or formula.
それは
So,
やっぱり
It is
どう考えて
from
も
nature
理
no
にかな
matter
ってない
what,
という
even
か
if you put some
倫理的
effort
にお
to
かしいん
make
じゃ
some
ないかっていう思いがありま
improvements.
したので、みん
So,
なのものなんだよ。だから
if
誰
you
のも
think
のなの
about it
みんなのものなんだよって
reasonably,
いうような
nobody
そういう思いで
can
この題名を
claim
ということで
an
す。
ownership of a
전체의
seed.
것이다, 공공의 것이다, 생명이다. 그래서
Yes, so
누구의
seeds
특정 기업이나
are the
특정한
source
것이
for life
소유물이
and a
돼서는
part
안
of
된다.
nature, so it
모두에게
cannot
이름을 줘야
be
된다.
owned by
그래서
particular
씨앗은 누구의
individual
것인가? 라는
or
질문에는
stakeholder.
답이 바로 들어있습니다.
I
그죠?
agree with you.
어떻습니까, 감독님? 그
So
제목에 답을 넣은 거죠?
so you are
제가
giving
볼
the
때는 그렇게
answer to our question with your title, right?
そういうふうに理解していただければ嬉しいです。
Well,
알겠습니다.
I
다음
think that
질문
is a
한번
good way to
보겠습니다.
put it.
지금 현 상황이 지금 보면은
So moving on to the next question. When we look at the current situation, we have the seed law and the seed industry law, and there are a lot of discussions about repealing it. What is the current situation? Is it being progressed or is it nearing conclusion?
問題はあるんですよ。要するに種子法というのは
We still have problems. In the case of the seed law, as mentioned, we have different provinces.
そういう各都道例えば私たちの埼玉県とか
Those
そういうところが自分
metropolitan
たちに
governments, including the government of Saitama province, a prefecture,
改良してきてそれを
they
やっぱ
want
り農家の人
to
たちに
improve the suitable
不足する
seeds
ことのないように
or
ということでこれは
varieties to meet the needs of the farmers after the defeat in the World War, we experienced a serious level of famine. So to our public or the citizens that reside in Japan, we want to support them that they did not starve. So this law provides the ground for this. So each local municipality will develop the seed that is suitable to the local community and disseminate this. But this law has been repealed. It means no budget as well. So it also means no new hires and no budget for adopting new equipment and devices. It poses a lot of difficulties. So around 30 local governments came up with the local seed ordinance in order to protect this practice. And this was a good thing. Mr. Yamada, the producer, suggested there should be a nationwide effort. So a lot of governments decided to move in the same direction. With the repealing of the Seed Act, there is a bipartisan effort to revive this act. It has not become concrete yet, but we do have such a movement. For multinational companies, the Abe administration repealed this law, but the Democratic Party of Japan, that used to be and still is focused on the agricultural community, along with parliamentary members who see this as a negative thing, are trying to stop this. From November 2nd to 3rd last year, this Seed Industry Act was passed in the parliament. Due to the pandemic, however, the discussions have been postponed. And in June this year, the discussions were supposed to be resumed, but celebrities stoked controversy that this is a negative direction. And last year, we saw the Prime Minister Abe resigning. And when we had the Suga administration, they said it has been postponed twice already. So this time, we need to rush into the discussion. So even without having a discussion, in early November, the bill was passed. And I thought this is nonsensical. As mentioned in the panel discussion, in the open session, the biggest problem is that, well, in the beginning of the movie, you will see this. There is a uniform ban. There are a lot of varieties of crops. But there are crops that won't be affected with a uniform ban. But the crops that I introduced in my film, the law prohibits you from replanting the seeds that you have cultivated or collected yourself. So we are seeing the impact in Tochigi Prefecture. The price of rice seeds have risen by about 3 times. So within a year, you saw the prices go up after the passing. Yes, only in the case of Tochigi Prefecture. I'm just sharing with you one example. And in Tochigi Prefecture, they came up with the seed ordinance.
種子条例を作ったんですが、他の県とは違って、種子法
And
を
unlike
廃
other
止したことに
prefectures,
寄り添うような条例を作ってしまったということが非常に大きかったと思います。
the ordinance is closer to what the people that are supporting this Seed Industry
現
Act
れるという状況ではないんです。
argue.
じわ
So
じわっと変わってくる。
it's not yet obvious in Japan, but we are gradually observing the impact of this direction. So I believe we need to restore the situation. So regarding the law until now,
농민들이 직접 종자, 그래 씨앗을
the farmers
그 재배를 하고
were
거기서
able to
수확을
grow the
해가지고
seed
다음
and
종자를
harvest,
주고 또 그걸
use the
심고
seeds from the
그리고
harvest
스스로
to replant
개량을 하고
and cultivate
그러면서
again,
이게 하나의
and
그
which will lead
지역의
to
하나의 그 풍습이
hybrids.
관습처럼 굳어왔는데
And that would result in
몬산토가
a community practice.
몬산토라든지
But
그제
suddenly,
작물 기업들이
Monsanto and
들어오면서 그
multinational
종자를
companies came in
특허를 받은 종자를
and
사용할 수 있게
patent
하는,
and
그러니까 자체적으로는 종자
disseminated,
개량을
patented
이게 그 지금
seeds
핵심이고
which blocks
그게
the
일본 사회에서
hybrid
그런
development
종자법을
by the
개진하는 게
farmers
굉장히 논란이
themselves.
됐습니까?
So in Japan, has this become a big controversy?
정도였습니까?
わかりました。実はですね、
Yes, it is a big controversy regarding the repealing of this Seed Act. The media and politicians alike
議論をされないというか、知らない間に廃止されてしまいました。まあこれはで
did
すね、
not know that this will
い
be
ろいろと他
repealed.
に重要な案件というか問題というか解決しなければいけないというような、
So there are a lot of issues that we need to resolve.
それについ
We
ては
did have a lot of pending issues that we needed to deal with at the time. So without much debate or discussion, this was repealed. The late Prime Minister Takeshita and his brother, he was a parliamentary member as well. And in a newspaper, OPED, he said, I also supported repealing the Seed Act, but I had no knowledge about it, in fact. And he found out it was wrong to support this direction.
やっぱり何と言うんでしょうか、日本の社会全体と言っていいのかもしれませんけども。
So I think we can say this is opposed by the entire Japanese society, but the problem is that the level of interest on agriculture is very low by the public. And agriculture takes account for only 1% of GNP. So Koizumi or Abe administration had people like Takenaka.
たった 1% の GNP しか育つものを保護してね、そんなものは保護しなくていいんだと、それはもうアメリカというか外国から輸入すればいいと。
It's okay not to protect 1% of the GNP because we can import it from overseas. And they valued automobile sector over agriculture. But in fact, this is about our food, which is the most essential element in our lives. And after our defeat in the World War, I think that kind of sense continued. Of course, we do have people who don't think this way, that value organic food and farming. I have a question about what you just said. Protecting indigenous seeds. Was that a sense shared by most of the farmers? Of course, when we talk about the overall general public, they may not see the value because it only takes account for 1%, but maybe even at least the farmers, did they have this sense that it's important? I need to talk about the Seed Industry Act in that regard. vegetables, and large farmers, the farming houses would buy these seeds. So we don't have many farmers who self-collect their seeds. So that was this. So regarding the revision of the Seed Industry Act, the sense of danger or risk was not shared or expressed. So many farmers, especially vegetable farmers, because they are used to buying seeds, as is the dominant case, they believe that there's no much impact from this revision. They did not feel a sense of crisis. Rather, the organic farms and eco farms felt the risk because they would harvest their own seeds. One leading example is sweet potatoes. Because you need to grow sweet potatoes yourself, because if you don't have any alternative. Organic farms well, not all of them self-harvest the seeds, but just there were voices of concern from a few organic farms.
결국은
So in the end,
아베 정부나 그전 정부나 정부 이야기를 하면서 결국 그 정치 이야기를 하신 것 같아요.
you
통과가 됐다는
mentioned politics, whether it was a rushed passage of the bill
폐지된 것을 다시
or
복원하고
not.
싶다. The
act was repealed, and that was an act of politics. And revising this act once again is an issue of politics. And in order to wield power or raise their voices, you need to have the farmers collaborating. And it's the documentary that you made contributing to this collective action.
それは客観的にどうかっていうことはちょっと私がはっきり言うとはできないんですが、
Objectively speaking, well, I cannot represent the entire society, but there are people with awareness, including several farmers. And we are gaining some feedback from these groups, I think at least. We do have many different citizens who are supporting this view, although small in number. So first of all, with the documentary, we were able to promote awareness on the actual contents of the Seed Industry Act. And I guess this led to change of some views. Protection of local seeds and native seeds is being carried out by setting up the Seed Industry Ordinance. So I don't think the movie was meaningless. I think it stoked some movement to make changes.
Then I would like to give you another question. So with the abolition of seed law, some seeds became intellectual property. So this means that farmers need to buy seeds for farming. So if you think about 10 years later, well, this can be a serious issue for farmers, but not only for farmers, but also for general public. So what kind of crisis or issues will the public face in 10 years?
まずちょっと申し上げたいんですけども、被害、これは先の
The
話で
first
すか
thing that
ら、
I want to
こうな
tell
るという
you
ことは
is
未来の
that,
ことを
well,
確実に言う
now
こと
we're
はできない
talking
んです
about
が、
the future,
基
so
本
I
的にです
cannot
ね、
be
この多様
absolutely
な
right
種子を、たくさんある種子
because I
を
just need to guess.
が
But
少しずつ減
main
らし
crop
てい
seeds
う、ある数を減らして、
might
あ
lose
るものを
their
減らしていこうっていう動き
diversity.
がその裏にあるわけですね、企業が作っていく。
And I think that
で
is the
それはです
background
ね、
of the abolition
やはりこう、
of
自
this
然
law.
災害が非常に頻発している中で、
Well, in a time when we see a lot of natural
例えば
disasters,
今あんまりこの流通されてないとかですね、あんまり育てにくいというような種子が
for
顧みられな
example,
いけど、それが
some
あること
crop
によっ
seeds
て
might not be marketed
ある単一の種
well,
子がです
or
ね、
some crops might be
気候変
difficult
動とか
to
何かによって
cultivate.
壊滅す
So
るとか
when
また
there
非
are
常に
some
減収
seeds
するっ
like
ていう時
that,
に、
and
今ま
when
で
we are hit by natural
顧みられなかったもの
disaster,
それに強いと
these
いうようなこ
crop
とがあるわけです。
seeds
実際に
or these
平成
varieties
って
will
見て
lose
わ
their
かるか
power
わ
in
か
the
りませんけれ
market
ど
and
も、
they will be
今からです
replaced
ね、30
by
年ぐらい前にね、
alternative
大例外
seeds.
があったんです。例外ってい
So
うか、
about 30
寒波で。
years ago,
で東北地方の、僕はその時別の撮影に行ったん
well,
ですけど、
Japan was hit hard
青森県や
by
なんか
a
でですね、
cold weather.
稲穂
I
がね、
think
み
it
んな青立
was
ちしてる
in
ん
the
ですよ。
northern
もう
region,
本当
Aomori
は神戸垂
Prefection.
れてなきゃいけない。要するに実
So
らなかった。それで、日本は
rice
米不足
crops
になったから
could
太陽が
not
国から緊急
be
に援助というか
harvested
輸入し
because
た
of
とい
the
うか
cold
輸入し
weather. So we
分
had
け
to
ていただい
import
て
some
冬場を
rices
しのい
from
だんで
other
すけど
nations,
も、
including
その時に
Thailand.
ですね、
So
この
we
例
could
外に
feed
強
our
いよ
people
うな
thanks to
品
the
種を、
import and trade.
宮城県というところの農
But it
林
was a
試験
big
場が
problem.
開発してた
So
ばかりだったんです
Miyagi
けども、
Prefection
非常に
developed
冷
a
たい水
new
の中で、それは生
species
き残ったんですよ。
of rice
要す
that
るに
can
多
be
様な種
strong
子が種
against
があること
cold
が
weather.
いざ何かあった時に安全保障になるわけなんですね。
So when
でも
we
それが
have
ある企
some
業
natural
の単一的な
disasters,
ものが
and
主
if
流
we
で、それ
have
が多くなってしま
diverse
うと何かあ
seed
った時に
varieties, we can always have some
実らないとい
alternatives.
うか、食
However,
糧危機
if
にな
we
る可能
lose
性
that
も
diversity,
あるということで
then
す。それ
it
とも
can
う
be
一
a
つで
big
すね、や
problem,
はりこの種がで
particularly
すね、
when we are faced
最初
with
のうちは企業の
uncontrollable
種というのは
natural
非常に安
disaster.
く販売されます。だから農家の
And
人が。ところがね、
the thing
それ
is
が
that when these
3年
companies
5年
sell
10
their
年経ってい
seeds,
くとだん
they
だんだんだん
will
値上が
provide
って
it
る
in
んで
the
す。
market at a very low
事実
price.
日
But
本
in
でいうと
years, they
大
will
企業
increase the
がモンサントと
price
かね、住
for
友とか
those
開発し
seeds.
てる種
So
は
Sumitomo, Monsanto, and
種
other
子法で守られた種
multinational
よりも
large
10倍とか言われてます
companies
けど、種が非常に高くなるんです。そうすると
sell
農家の負担は
seeds
非常に増える。
at a very
初
high
めは企業
price
で
in
す
the
から安
end.
く、
So that's going to
それが
be put a lot
他
of
のものが
burden
なくなって
on
しまうと、それ
farmers.
しかなくなる、それしか
So in
選
the
択がやるし
beginning,
かなくなると値
farmers
段をどんどん上げていく。
might have other
そういった
alternatives.
危険性もあっ
However,
て、
if these
農
companies
業も
have
なかなか厳しい
exclusivity
現状の中にある
or
中で今高齢化してますから、
dominance in the
ますま
market,
す
then
農
in
業
few
離れが
years,
激し
farmers
く
will
なる。
not be able to find
日
any
本の農業にとって危
alternatives.
機的な
This
こと
means
が
that even
起こ
some
ること
farmers might
は
give up on their
かなり
farming
予想される
because of
可
the
能性
high
もあるかと思います。
initial
それは何とかしなきゃ
costs.
いけないという
So
ふう
I
に
do
思います。
believe that that can be a
以上です。
big problem in the
알겠습니다.
future.
단시간에는 큰 오히려
So in a short
를
time,
모르고 있을 수
probably we will not suffer a lot due to these changes. But in the long run, because of a lost diversity, we will have some issues and problems in crop production, and it will result in some direct
제가 예전에
problems for the general public.
감자
Well, one of the books that I
감자 품종이
read
생물이
recently
빨리 자란다 해서 그
was about
감자
a potato.
품종만을
Some
길렀다가
potato
어느 날
variety
항해가 닥치면서
was really
썩어 없어진 거예요. 그래서 어마어마한
going
사람들이
well in Ireland or somewhere. So I thought that the country
그 말은 역으로
uniformly used that
우리가
variety
안전하게
across the
먹이를
nation.
지켜나가기
But
위해서
when
그
the country was
다양한
hit by
종자를
some
이
natural
우리가
disaster,
해내서
they lost
특히
all the
기후 위기
potatoes.
시대에
So I
대응해야겠다.
think what you just
그렇게 좀
mentioned is very
감독의
similar
말을
to the
말씀드리고
actual case in
싶습니다.
Ireland.
또
So
우리
that was pretty insightful
히로시
comment
옆에 앉아
and
계신데
prediction for the
또
future. So now
소비자시잖아요.
back to
일본의 한
Mr.
시민으로서 그
Hiroshi.
소비자고
You are also
종자,
one of the
종자로
Japanese
인한
consumers
그
and
채소나 이런
part of
작물들,
the
소비자 물가
general
이런 부분에
public.
대해서 시민들
So when you
혹시
think about the
이런 부분을
consumer
좀 막아야
price
된다라는 그런
of these crops,
것들이
particularly the
느껴보신 적이
rice, do you think
있습니까?
that
이런
we
부분에 대한
need to take some
인식이라든지
actions?
소비자들이 종자
So
이런
from
부분에
the
대해서
perspective of consumer,
이런 법이 폐지되는 것은 문제다.
do you think that
이런
the
이야기들이
abolition
좀
of
인식들이
this
있는지.
seed law can be a problem?
제가 한국에 거주하고 있기 때문에
Well, currently I am living in
지금
Korea.
한국에서 접속하고 계신 겁니까?
Oh, okay, you're from Korea. I see.
조금 그 소비자하고 관련해서 말씀을 드리면
So if I connect this issue from
생협이 좀그
and see this issue from the perspective of a consumer,
한국 경우에는
I
생협 그 유기농 참을 판매하려고 생협 시작했다고 좀 들었거든요. 근데 일본에는
well, I think that things are different in Korea
50년대
and
전부터
Japan.
시작했기 때문에
From about
좀 그런
1950s,
마인드는
Japan
없는 생협도 좀 많거든요. 그래서 유기농에 대한 그 관심 그리고 편하게
So I think
유기농
that
농작물을
people's
접할 수 있는 기회는
interest in organic
일본보다
farming
한국이 많은 것 같습니다.
is stronger
특히
in Korea than in
삼채소,
Japan, particularly
그
for
뭐
leaf
불고기나
vegetables.
갈비나 그런 삼채소 종류는 일본에서는 찾기가 어렵고
Well,
그리고 유기농 아닌 경우에는 많아요.
Japanese
한국에
people do not
거의 동네
consume
슈퍼마켓도
leaf
있고
vegetables that
그런
much
모습을
compared to
보고
Korea.
저도
So
놀랐고
particularly
다른 일본
for
분도
those
놀라고
leaf
많이
vegetables,
계세요.
it's really hard to find
네,
organic
그런 부분은
produce.
차이가 좀
So I think that
한국하고
awareness
비교하면 큰 것 같습니다.
level is different in Korea
결국
and
오늘
Japan
씨앗은 누구
in
것인가를
regard
우리가
to
이야기를
organic
이런
farming.
자리에서 하는 것은 그게 일본만의
I
문제도
see.
아니고
So the
여기
issue
앉아
that
있는
we are
한국의
currently
문제,
discussing
이미
is
한국은
not
문제가
an
되고 있다라고
issue
생각을
isolated
하고 한국
in
이해도 전 세계적으로
Japan.
많은 부분에서
It is
이로
a
인한
controversial
문제들이
issue in
발생을 하고
Korea
있다라고
and
봅니다.
in many other
제가
nations.
기억하기로는 그 결국
As far as I
금융위기가
remember,
우리 IMF가
the
한국에 있었습니다.
1997 or 8 Asian financial
IMF가
crisis
있으면서 그 전까지 아주 견실한 종자
became a
기업들이
turning
있었습니다.
point.
제가 기억하기로는.
Before that
그 기업들이
time,
다양한 종자를
Korean society
계속
had
육종을 하면서
very
농가들이
strong
보급을 하고
seeds
싸게
companies.
보급을 하고
They
농가들은 그걸 싸게
provided
받으면서 그걸
good
재배를
quality
하고 이런
native
시스템이
seeds
왔었는데
to
어느
farmers
날
at low cost, low
금융이
price.
돈이 안 들어오면서
However,
그 기업들이 전부 포도가
when the financial market was hit hard
어디로
by
갔는지
the
오늘 갑자기
crisis,
없어졌어요.
many
나중에
companies
보니까
went bankrupt. So
대기업의
they just
해외 자본에
disappeared
흡수가
from the
되는
market.
그런 사태가
And later I
나면서
learned that they were
종자, 이
merged
경쟁,
or
이런
acquired
부분까지
by
그냥
large
흔히
capital or large
우리가 가지고
companies
있던
in
그
Korea.
종자들이 사라진
So
것이죠.
because of the
그
change,
이후에는
we
모든
lost
종자는 사서 재배를 한다. 이게
native
불문율처럼
seed
지금
providers, small
되고 있다라고
companies.
봅니다. 그러면서 그 종자가
So
과연
we
어떤
began to
과정을
lose
거쳐서
diversity
만들어졌는지, 그
in our
안에는
native
유전자가
seeds.
조작되어 있는지 없는지
And
이런
even
것조차 판별을 할 수가 없는 상태죠 지금.
and we
그래서
lack a
제가
lot of
씨앗은
information
누구
on our native
것인가를
seeds. We are
굉장히
not
귀한
sure whether
다큐멘터리라고
they
보는
are
이유가
genetically modified or
위기의
not.
상황에 이런
So I
영상
believe
하나가
that we
시대의
are
물결을
at
바꿀 수 있다라는
a
생각이
very
듭니다.
critical juncture, and I
그래서
believe that
이
your film,
씨앗
whose
이 부분을
seeds are,
준비해주신 감독님한테 다시
can
한번 감사를 드리고 싶습니다.
be very
감사드리고
important,
계속 그
and it
질문을
will ring
해주신
some
분들의
bells
질문을
for
좀
many others.
해주시면
So, well, I do have more
또 질문이 하나
questions
있네요.
from
이 다큐 영화를
the
통해서
audience.
감독님이
So
전하고 싶은
another question is that,
지금까지
so
말씀도 했지만은 그 메시지가
director,
무엇일까요?
what is the exact
이야기를
message that you would like to deliver through this film?
はい、さっき種は誰のものかっていうような、みんなのものだっていうような、
Well,
ことを
I
お
would
話
like
ししましたけれ
to
ども
tell you
こ
that
の映画で
the
一番最後の
seeds
方にですね、自然栽培をやってる伊藤
are
さんという
owned
ことが助走しながら
by
ですね、
everyone.
コメントという
Well,
かインタ
at
ビュ
the
ーで
end of the
答えて
film,
くだ
the
さった
farmer
んですね。
Itoshi
それこ
made a
そが
comment
一番やはり私の言いたいことなのです。
And that comment is the exact message that I wanted to deliver. And another thing is that we have to look beyond the seeds. Living in this modern society, I believe that we have two different paths. First,
例えば日本ではですね、ゲノム編集の食品というものがもう
well, we have to think about genetically modified organisms and ingredients in food. And the thing is that they are not fully disclosed in their food labeling, particularly if you think about tomatoes. Many of these tomato varieties are genetically engineered, and we know that these GM tomato varieties have been provided to about 500 farming families in Japan. So genome editing technology is something that we have to think about. I understand that these scientists take great pride in their achievements, and they believe that their work is for good. And I agree with that. However, they are in this lab and they are developing the science in the lab, controlled, limited area. However, if their developments or achievements are let out of the lab and used in the open area like farming villages, we don't know what kind of impact they will have. We have to remember that we are part of the nature and the seeds are part of the nature. Well, of course, some genetically modified organisms might work well with the existing nature, but there must be some GMO produced that might be in conflict with the existing nature. And without our understanding, we are inflicting some damage to the nature. So if we think that we can control life or organisms using science and our smart brain, that can be a mistake. If you think human can do everything with advancing technologies and science, you are wrong. We are part of this very complex ecosystem. We are just one type of animal living on Earth. So we have to have this broad viewpoint when we think about the small seeds, and we have to always see it in the context of the earth, nature, and the environment. Before the rapid economic development, Japanese people believed that human beings need to live harmoniously with nature. Everybody knew it, and everybody agreed with it. However, with the rapid economic development, we began to believe that we can control things. Humans are at the top of everything, and even editing genes. But I just would like to tell you that we are just part of nature, and we have to coexist with nature. So I hope that our children and the future generations have this in mind so that they can become healthy-minded adults. Or I believe that we will cause a serious danger to the earth.
Thank you so much for that remark. People are a part of the nature and people do not own Earth. You mentioned the genome scissors, and and
인간이
reminds
물이
me
날고
of
기고
this.
뛰고
No matter
유기자를
how
조작한다 해도
superior people are, and no matter how modified the
상이거든요.
genes,
결국은.
they cannot
유전자를
create
자르고
one simple
고칠 수는
seed.
있을지언정
They can, of
생명을
course,
만들
cut
수가
and
없다는
modify
거예요.
genes,
그런데
but they
우리는
cannot
생명을
create
창조하는 것
living
이상의
organisms.
좀 거만함을 가지고 자연을
But
대하는
people
것이
are
아닌가.
very arrogant
그래서
in dealing with the
감독님이
nature.
그
So,
과정에서
in that
최소한
process,
우리가 자연의 일부라는 걸 인식시켜 주기
you
위해서
thought there is a need to raise awareness on the
종자만이라도
fact we are
보호해야
a
된다.
part of the nature,
이렇게
and in line
아마
with that, you
영화를
wanted to
그렇게
protect the
기획을
seed,
하고 그
and that's why
의도가
you
거기에 있지
planned
않은가
and directed the
싶습니다.
film,
아까 그
I think.
말씀하신 그 다큐의 마지막 부분에
At the end of the film, we can see Hokkaido
귀농을 해서
and the farmer
말씀하신 그게
returning
저도
to
생각나는데
Hokkaido.
결국 씨앗이 특정
And
기업에 귀속이
the farmer
되면
said, if
사회가
the seed is owned by a certain company,
위험하다.
the society is
말을
at
했다,
risk.
그 기억으로.
I think he said
맞습니까?
that. Is that right?
そうです。だから最後の
Yes, that's right.
手落ちで女装してたね。
At the end of the
伊藤さんっていう
film,
方なんで
you
すけど、
can
彼
see
が言いたい
Mr.
こと
Ito, the farmer
が
who
一
was
番のこの映画での
weeding the
メッセージ
ground. He said that, and that is the key message I want to deliver.
알겠습니다. 아주
Thank you.
생각을 깊게 할 수 있는
I think
그런
your
이야기인 것
film
같습니다.
provides a lot of food for
또
thought.
다른 같은 질문이네요.
I
여전히
think,
지속 가능성과
There's another
다양성과
question
관련한 우리의 삶의 시작에서 씨앗이
regarding
있다는 생각이
diversity
든다.
and
지금
sustainability.
감독님 하신
I
말씀을 그대로
believe
질문
the
속에서 갖고
everything
있습니다.
starts from seeds.
제가
That's exactly what you
보면서
mentioned.
생각난 질문을 좀 하고 싶은 게
I
저는
do
이제
have a
시골에서
question
살아서,
myself. I was
중학교
raised
때까지
in a rural
시골에서 살았습니다.
village
그리고
and
자라면
grew up there
누구나
until when I was a
들어가듯이
middle school
농사를
student.
도왔습니다.
And of
짓지는
course, I was
않았지만
involved in
돕는
farming.
것조차 힘이 들거든요.
I assisted
그러면서 그때 본 것
parents'
기억들이
farming. It was very
옥수수를
difficult.
먹고
I
늘
remember
몇 개는
always
말립니다.
eating
말리고
corn,
옥수수
and
씨앗을
the
따서
remainder would
내년
be
농사에
dried up
쓰고
to harvest the seeds for next year's farming. It's the same with
근데 그게
the sesame seeds and
제가 볼
rice
때는
farming, but suddenly
농민들이
that
사서 쓰는 게
disappeared.
훨씬 쌉니다. 그리고
It's much
수확량도
cheaper for
많고.
farmers to
그러니까
buy
더
the
이상,
seeds and they get better
종자를,
yield.
씨앗을
So no longer
자체적으로,
farmers
이래
want
받고
to
하는 부분 없어진 것 같아요. 한국 사회에서는.
the farm
물론
to
자세히 보면
harvest
또 어디
and
어느
share
곳에서나
their
유기농
seeds.
재배를 하시는 분들이
Of
그렇게
course,
하고
we
있으신
have
분들이
organic
있지만
farmers in
그래
Korea
된
still
이유가,
continuing with the practice, but
일본에서 지금
we have
경작법
seen this
폐지가
change
기습적으로 날치기를 통해서 돼버렸습니다.
with the rushing of the
일본에도
repeal
지금 그렇게 종자를
the
귀하게
Seed
여기는 분들이
Act.
이 종자법 폐지로 굉장히 지금
I
그게
believe that
없어질지 않을까.
people who
그런데 그렇게 힘들게
value
종자를
the
이어오는
importance of
분들도
seeds
갑자기 어느 날
would
편하게
decrease in number.
사서 쓰는 게 더 편하다 이렇게 되면은
And if we lose all these groups
그 버릇이
that value
들면은 종자를
seeds
굳이 할 필요가
and they
없다고
start to
보여요.
see the
사람은
benefit of
굉장히
buying
편리에
seeds,
익숙한 동물이기 때문에
we
그래서
would
지금 이 순간이
eventually
중요하다고 보는데
lose all the
어떻습니까?
seeds because people are very used to getting familiar with
で私です
convenience.
か。
네 질문입니다. 지금 이 상황에서
非常にその問題についてはストレートに
regarding that
こうだってい
issue,
うことは私はなかなか言えない立場なんですよ。
it's hard to give a straightforward answer.
すべての農家がこれ自家採取自家増殖をしなければいけないということに
All
なか
farms
なかならないと思います。
need to collect and harvest their seeds. I don't think that is
多少ずれる
the
かも
way
しれませんが、種
We
の
cannot
会
say
種
that.
を開発している会社の人たちの努力というかですね、
You may think
それもや
differently,
っぱり
but
認
the
めなければ
efforts
僕はいけないと思って
of the seed
おります。
developers must be
でどういうこと
recognized,
か
I
って言い
think.
ますと、例えば日本
To
の、ね、
elaborate,
一番大きいのは、
for example,
酒田の種とか大きい大企業がある
In
んです
Japan,
けども、その
we have a
企業
large
ですら
company
です
called
ね、
Sakata
種を
that developed
新しい種を
seeds.
開発するときにですね、自分たちの
When
研
they
究機関だけ
develop
ではできない
new
んです。
seeds,
なぜかというと、
they cannot work
北海道から
alone with their
沖縄まで
research
非常に気候が違う
facility because
日本
from
の中
north
で
to
ですね、
south in
どの
Hokkaido, the
気候の
temperature
中でも
differs
育てられるよ
greatly.
うな種を販売してるわけですけど、それはね、
They
各地の
sell
農家の
seeds
人た
that
ちに
can grow
協
in
力を
any
依頼
kind
して
of
いただいて、
temperature.
農家の知恵というか、農家の
It means they have collected the wisdom of the farmers from local communities and the
です
knowledge.
から必ずしも買う種が企業が勝手にやってるんではなくて農家として
So even the seeds that you buy in this store has not been developed unilaterally by the companies, but it's an output of collaboration with farmers.
まあ一刀両断することは僕はでき
So
ないです
you cannot
ただやはりですね
dismiss the
そうは言っても
seeds that are sold in the
いろいろなその
store
自然
that
栽
they
培
are
とか
bad,
有機農業とか
but
ですね
still
そちらの
eco
方をこれ
farming
から増や
and
していく
organic
日本
farming
政府もそれを増やしたいって動いてます
should
ので
increase in
ま
number
あそれも
at
ちょ
the
っといろいろ
same
問題はある
time
んですけ
with
どもやっ
commercial
ぱオーガニックのもの
seed
をやっぱり
businesses.
増やすということが大切ですからそう
So
いう
the
意味から言い
important
ます
part
とで
is
すね自家採取というも
increasing
のを
the
も
share
っともっ
of
とやれるもの
eco
を増え
and
ていくという
organic
ことが
farming at
非
the
常に大
same
切だと
time.
僕は
So
思
we
ってお
need
ります。
the growth
とにかく日本
of
はまだ有機農
farming
業の比率
or
が非常に
farms engaged
0.5% と
in
か言われてますから
auto
200
harvesting
人
of
1件で
seeds.
すから
In the
まあそれは
UK,
まあそういうような状況
eco
の中
farming
で
is only
種取りをす
0.5%
るという
of
こ
the
とはや
entire
っぱり本当に
agricultural method.
いい作
So
物というか安全で
self-harvesting
安
or
心でいい
collection
も
of
のをやっぱり
seeds
これから増やしていくというようなねことにつながるのでやっぱり種取りというものをこれからやっぱり
can increase
どんどん
the
どんどん
number
もう
of
一回
organic
取り組むよ
farms,
う
I
に
think.
なるということが
So I
やっぱり非常に大切だと思っております以上です
at least some of our farmers could
알겠습니다.
think
그 지금
toward this
한
way.
시간
So we have
예정으로 좀 했는데 한 10분 정도 남은 듯합니다.
about 10 minutes left
다나카 히로시
for this 1-hour discussion.
이미 작업하면서
Mr. Tanaka
감회가
Hiroshi,
있었을 것 같은데
while translating,
어떻습니까?
you must have felt a
종자
lot of things.
누구 것인가를 질문을 탁 던지는 작업을 자막 작업이지만 한글
So you were
작업이지만
translating this, who owns the seeds, into Korean. What was your impression?
그 영화에 나오는 농가 중에 한 분은
There's one farm in the
만나본
film,
적이 있는 농가고
and I've actually
그
met
농장도
the farmer
가봤거든요.
several times by visiting the place.
후루야상
His name is Huruya,
진짜 그분이 말하는 그 간판에 나오는 그 앞으로의
and Mr. Huruya says
세대의 건강한 농작물이 아니면 그
the
농지를
healthy
지내주고
crops
싶다라는
or soil must be passed down to our next generation.
통해서도 다시 확인되었습니다.
And I could feel his enthusiasm in the film as well. Well, as we continue with our discussion, we're getting new questions. This is one. To protect our seeds, farmers are important, but what kind of efforts can the general citizens can make?
なんか難しい
That's a very difficult question.
まずですね守るためにという趣旨という、まあ、農業にとっての、まあ、一番原点というか出発点で
Protecting
大
the
切なんです
seeds.
けども
The
一番大
starting
切な
point
もっと
of agriculture
それに一般の市民の人たちがそういうものに関心を持ったりするためにですね
for the general public to take interest in the importance of protecting seeds, they need to recognize the significance of food. It's not just about taste. They need to think about microorganisms that are in the soil and the importance of growing them. That is the gist of agriculture. So, having a good understanding of agriculture and training or experiences to actually touch the soil so that our children could naturally take this in is important. If we are going to give lectures on ethics or morals, I think we should send our children to the farming villages at school. That would be more efficient. While growing the plants and farming, children can touch the soil and will have a lot of new experiences. When the yield is good, they are happy. When it's not, they're sad. They go through this process. But in the city, we can only see the outputs that are vegetables on your table, but they need to see the actual process at the farm villages to have experiences and feel a lot of emotions. I think it's important that our next generation understand and experience this, because the general public currently don't see the value of the seeds or importance of discussing seeds. So I think schools can cooperate with co-ops to visit farm villages. That would lead to raise in civil awareness. So going to the farm villages and actually engaging in farming themselves, they would have more respect toward life. We have another question. Do you know of any books that is related to your topic that you would like to recommend? Well, you caught me by surprise. I can't recall the title. Give me a second. In the meantime, Mr. Hiroshi, what about you? Any books that you would like to recommend? Well, for instance, there's the book by Yamada, What Will Become of Seeds? I don't think there's a Korean translation. What Will Become of Seeds? I think this book touches upon the specifics missing in my film. Well, this is written in Japanese, so I don't think the audience in Korean will be able to read it. It would be nice if it would be translated. Maybe translated soon enough. So what will become of seeds? There's a better one. The safety of food. The safety of food that is being sold. In August 2 years ago, this book was published. And we have the 5th edition now. I think this was the #1 bestseller on Amazon Japan. It was read by a lot of Japanese. It was a great hit, and I think it would sell by millions in Korea when it's translated. It was a surprise. It took the society by surprise with its popularity. So you mentioned what will become of the seeds and safety of foods are being sold. That sends a similar message with the film. So anyone in the audience, if you want to translate the book, you need to hurry.
原村監督、僕がやりますので、山田先生にお伝えください。제가 해드릴 테니까山田
ぜひぜひ山田さんと話山田さんも喜ぶと思いますよ。
Yes, so he is saying that he's going to translate the book. Okay, great. Thank you. So we have about 4 minutes left to end the session. So, well, I have been filming documentary films for about 25 years myself. And watching your film, I thought that your films and the images were pretty rough. I mean, it is not really sophisticated and graphically edited so well to make a great quality. Like many other movies these days, you are just plainly go meet these farmers and put camera and just record them and put it in the movie. So these days, actually, even documentary films do not use these sort of methods. But you still use this method and still successfully delivered your messages. So you didn't focus a lot on these technical skills. And by watching your film, I learned again that these technical aspects and skills are not something that make films better. What really matters is the content and messages that you create by collecting information, particularly listening to the voices of the interviewees. So I just once again realized this, and with your film, I learned that this issue will not only affect this generation but also future generations. So I believe that your films are touching on a really large issue that we all need to think about as a community. And what is the reaction from the Japanese society now about your film? Well, I believe that documentary films are, when you are screening documentary films, you first make notice or announcement, and we were pretty highly reviewed by the Japanese public. We screened this movie in about 20 theaters. So one of the comments on YouTube is that the seeds are related to the institution of democracy. What do you think about that? Well, that is pretty philosophical comment. Well, democracy is about reaching an agreement by listening to various voices and opinions. So, well, I believe that everybody has different ideas and opinions, and we have to recognize that diversity and respect the diversity. That is a true democracy. So I believe that we have to respect and recognize this diversity of seeds as well. So I wouldn't say that seeds and democracy are directly connected with one another, but in a sense that we are respecting diversity, they do have some common idea, I think. Great. So then you made me think about this. So you are saying that seeds are not owned by any individual. So in order to create this culture and promote this idea, you have to actively engage in movement. And that is also the basic pillar of democracy, right? Engagement. So I do believe that seeds and democracy are connected with one another in one way and the other. So it feels like that we are now, in a humanities class, and it is also it can be seen as a politics class as well. But, well, seeds can be connected with various parts of our society. Well, it is really interesting and insightful. So I understand that you have spent a lot of time on your screen for this session. the film festival and the open session early in the morning. So thank you so much for being with us today. So thank you, Director Masashiko and Mr. Hiroshi. So will you be continuing to produce documentary films?
農業とか人と自然との関わりというのが私のメインテーマです。
Yes, so human and nature and their relationship. That is my main theme. So as I told you, we have a different movie just released, right? People who are protecting our food scene. So food seeds are and people protecting food scene. These two movies are like sister movies. You have to see both. This movie is being screened in Japan. The first screening was in July, and currently it is being screened in about 45 theaters. And it was supposed to go for about 2 weeks, but now it will be screened in the theater for more than 5 weeks. So it is popular, and many older people and even young people are paying a lot of attention to this movie. And another film that I am currently working on is about rural villages. So it is about finding our hometowns in rural village. I believe that I will release this film next year. So I will definitely be in the film industry for next years. I see. So I understand that we cannot meet each other in person due to this pandemic, but I hope that I can see you in person in in the near future, whether it is in Korea or in Japan. I believe that if we meet in person, we can have an even more fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
こちらこそどうもありがとうございました。
자, 네, 저도 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.